like I'm like too close.
Yeah,
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. How's everybody doing?
Good. Good.
Good.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Full of power.
All present and happy. Good.
Yes.
All right. Let's pray and then let's get started.
Okay.
God, thank you for tonight and for the teaching. God, just thank you so much for everything that you are going to teach us and open our hearts to hear whatever it is that you're trying to say. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. Make sure your phone's on silent, people. Don't be like me. Because it'll like vibrate in this, it's metal. Okay, so we're reading Judges 6 through 8 because that's what Jason told me. And that's just where I stopped when I was studying, so it worked out anyway. And I wrote down that at this point it's 1169 BC because we're doing chronological studies. So we're starting in chapter 6. And basically I have some notes on certain verses. So if anyone has any questions or anything like that that they want to ask the group, then that's fine. Just let me know. But otherwise, this is like a very deceptively short looking one. I feel like whenever I have like 20 notes, it's like going to take 2 seconds. And when it's like a few notes, then it's just be forever. I just know it's going to take a long time. But anyway. Okay, so we can start in Judges 6.
You gotta talk a lot louder because for some reason I can't hear you over here. Judges what, 6?
I'm a loud person. Judges 6, yeah. 6:1. Okay. The people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord gave them into the hand of Midian 7 years. Okay, so first part of that verse, what were they doing in the sight of the Lord?
Can we keep it up?
Yeah, sure. You can cheat if you want. What did you say? They did evil. I feel like when you read about the people of Israel, it happens a lot that that they did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, or that they followed God until new king, or until new this, or until this, or whatever. But they like, I don't know, it's just like a theme of people in general that we forget super duper easily. Okay, the second part of that is that it says, and the Lord gave them into the hand of Midian 7 years. So God gave them into the hands of their enemies. I feel like I talk to a lot of people that do not think there's a direct repercussion for our sin and disobedience, and that's just not really true. That's just something that we think. It's wishful thinking. And also just people thinking that God's not going to be the one to give you into that. But like the Bible makes it super clear. There's lots of verses. You can look them up. That God will give you to whatever it is you're chasing after a while. Because he gets, I don't know, he gets a little sick, I guess, of having you put your hand in his face. So he's like, okay, go ahead. That's fine. Okay, I'll keep reading from 2 through to 10. Okay. And the hand of Midian overpowered Israel. And because of Midian, the people of Israel made for themselves dens that are in the mountains and the caves that are and strongholds. For whenever the Israelites planted crops, the Midianites and the Amalekites and the people of the east would come up against them. They would encamp against them and devour the produce of the land as far as Gaza, and leave no sustenance in Israel, and no sheep or ox or donkey. So they're just taking everything. Because for some reason I picture like sheep, ox, donkey, they're just taking all your livestock and carrying chickens. But like those are huge animals, by the way. You're just like up in a cave watching them take all your animals. Okay. Okay. And Israel was brought very low because of Midian. And the people of Israel cried out for help to the Lord. I just want to say it says brought very low, but the verse before was like they went up into caves. So that's just funny to me. When the people of Israel cried out to the Lord on account of the Midianites, the Lord sent a prophet to the people of Israel. And he said to them, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, I led you up from Egypt and brought you out of the house of slavery. And I delivered you from the hand of the Egyptians and from the hand of all who oppressed you, and drove them out before you, and gave you their land. And I said to you, I am the Lord your God. You shall not fear the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell, but you have not obeyed my voice. Okay, so I wrote here for a note, God isn't going to leave things hidden forever. Kind of along with the thing, the subject kind of, to me, as I was studying this, was like that God is so gentle, which seemed kind of weird, considering it's like in Judges in the Old Testament. It just didn't seem like a spot I would be finding God being gentle. But a lot of times, at least for me, maybe not so much recently, but like in my whole Christian walk, I found that like there's these horrible periods where I just don't know why things are going wrong and I have no idea what's up. But God doesn't just leave you in the dark forever. Like, he is super kind and gentle. He's not sitting there like, well, as soon as you figure out what you messed up, I'll let you know why I'm not here. I'll let you know why you're suffering. So I don't know if that can be an encouragement to anybody, but like, if you don't know why you're in the midst of something, you don't know why you're suffering, it's not like it's a forever perpetual thing. God's going to let you know why, because especially if you did something. Because I have a bad habit of personally being like, man, I must have done something wrong, and this is why this happened, and this is why this happened, this is why this happened. And me and Jordan were talking about it the other day. And I don't know, it was really funny because when I started the conversation, Jordan's like, I don't know. Like, oh, I'm not God. And I was like, me either. Like, we didn't know. And then, like, pretty quickly, like 5 minutes in, we're all of a sudden like, oh, yeah, God would probably let you know. He's not just going to like, oh, you're a horrible sinner who made all these mistakes, and that's why this bad stuff is happening, but I'm not going to tell you. So I liked that in those verses, 1 through 10, it gets there, and God's just like, because you haven't obeyed my voice, this is all happening to you. So there really wasn't a question for them. Maybe there was during the 7 years, but I just have a hard time picturing it, but, you know, whatever. Then the prophet came, and he said, for sure, this is your fault. Okay, great, now we know. Okay, so verse 11. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth at Ophrah, however you say that, which belonged to Joash the Abizrite, while his son Gideon was beating out the wheat in the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, the Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor. And Gideon said to him, please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, then why has all this happened to us? And where are all his wonderful deeds that our fathers recounted to us, saying, did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and given us into the hand of Midian. I like that he says given us, but at the very beginning he's like, why has this happened to us? Like, but God just told them why it happened. Anyway, and the Lord turned to him and said, go in this might of yours and save Israel from the hand of Midian. Do I not send you? Okay. So in verse 14, I put a note there because God lets you notice things for a reason. If you are in ministry or in church or in your family life or in work or anything like that, and you just start noticing stuff that doesn't seem right and is like, man, God, like, where's your justice? Where's your grace and mercy? Where's whatever it is that is lacking and in your mind isn't supposed to be there? I don't think that all the time it's God, but I definitely think God allows you to notice things for a reason. He's not just pointing things out and you're sitting there like, man, I just noticed this is so unjust and horrible, and that's it. Like, I feel like God points it out because he's planning on maybe assigning you something. Yes.
I thought it was cool in that verse. It said the Lord turned to him, so it seems like he's actually there. Like if it was Jesus or like it was actually there. 'Cause
Yeah.
If you pull it back, you can see that it says it turned to him. So that it sounds like
He like turned his focus to him.
Oh, I thought it meant like he like faced him, like turning to somebody. So it.
I like that too. It doesn't say that he was standing right there, but I like that too. Either way, I just like the word turned because it's like he like Yes, Piper. You're my child. I'm now listening. You're her child. But anyway. It's always nicer when your mom looks at you when you're talking to her, right? So, yeah. Anyway, God lets you know things for a reason. Okay. So, I think I was at 15. Okay. And he said to him, "Please, Lord, how can I save Israel? Behold, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house." So humble. And the Lord said to him, "But I will be with you, and you shall strike the Midianites as one man." Okay, just super random, but in 16, he didn't say, "I know you're the least in your father's house, but you're not from the smallest, weakest tribe, and you're not the least. You're not." He just was like, "Okay, but I'm going to be with you." Like, yes, you kind of stink. I get it.
I don't know the timeline. I don't remember it, but parallel to David, the weakest, the smallest.
Yeah. You're like jumping ahead, but we're going to get
Sorry.
there. No, you're fine. It's okay. We're right about to get there, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
But yeah, like, God's just like, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because anything that goes through my mind that's like, God isn't taking care of this, or this isn't happening, or whatever I think, like, usually the next thing God says is like, okay, but, because I'm God. And I'm like, oh, sorry. I forgot about that little detail. Okay. So, I think we're in 16. Okay. And he said to him, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, then show me a sign that it is you who speak with me. Please do not depart from here until I come to you and bring out my present and set it before you." And he said, "I will stay till you return." So Gideon went into his house and prepared a young goat and unleavened cakes from an ephah flour, and the meat he put in a basket, and the broth he put in a pot. And he brought them to him under the terebinth and presented them. And the angel of the Lord said to him, "Take the meat and the unleavened cakes and put them on this rock and pour the broth over them." And he did so. Then the angel of the Lord reached out the tip of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened cakes, and fire sprang up from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened cakes, and the angel of the Lord vanished from his sight.
Wow.
Okay. Then Gideon perceived that he was the angel of the Lord, and Gideon said, "Alas, O Lord God, for now I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." But the Lord said to him, "Peace be to you. Do not fear. You shall not die." Okay. I just put a note there because I don't know who all has watched The Chosen, but I really liked in the first few episodes where there's a priest and he's trying to figure out who this Jesus guy is, and the other like Pharisees, or he's a Pharisee, whatever. Anyway, the other Pharisee dudes are like, "Oh, well, he couldn't be God. There's no such thing as a son of God because like you can't see God's face, and or you die. He'd have to walk around with a sack over his head so you couldn't see it." And I just liked this part because he's talking about the angel of the Lord. Whoever you interpret that to be in the Bible, I interpret that to be Jesus. But he's talking about the angel of the Lord, and then he realized he was speaking with the angel of the Lord, and he's like, "Oh, whoa, God's the angel of the Lord." And God right away is like, "You're not going to die. It's going to be okay." I liked the particular line from The Chosen where the guy was talking, and he said, "So if God did something outside of what you believe to be right for his behavior, would you tell him to get back in that box you made for him?" Because it's like back in Deuteronomy where it's like, no one shall see God's face and live. But then we like automatically like, well, that's it, God. You made the rule. I mean, I didn't make the rules. You made the rules, so you can't do it. And God's always like super fun about being like, yes, I made the rules. Exactly. Anyway, I just think that's neat because he does not fit into our boxes. Okay, so the next verse is 24. And Gideon built an altar there to the Lord and called it, "The Lord is Peace." To this day, it still stands at Ophrah, which belongs to the Abiezrites. That night the Lord said to him, "Take your father's bull and the second bull 7 years old and put down the altar of Baal that your father has, and cut down the Asherah that is beside it. And build an altar to the Lord your God on the top of the stronghold here, with stones laid in due order. Then take the second bull and offer it as a burnt offering with the wood of the Asherah that you shall cut down. Okay. So Gideon took 10 men of his servants and did as the Lord had told him. But because he was too afraid of his family and the men of the town to do it by day, he did it by night. When the men of the town rose early in the morning, behold, the altar of Baal was broken down. The Asherah beside it was cut down, and the second bull was offered on the altar that had been built. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there for a second. I just wrote who sent you because God literally told him what to do. Like, you need to go do this. This is how you do it. Set it in due order. Cut this down. We're not going to have this altar here anymore. Because, like, Baal, demon. Okay? We're not worshiping him anymore.
No.
We're done with that. And he said, like, I'm sending you. Like, who sent you to do it? So sometimes when God sends me to do things, I, as well, can be like, but everybody else is doing something different. And I really don't want to stand out. And I think that's really all it comes down to, is you just don't want to stand out, whatever the consequences are for standing out. So I'm not going to do it in a day. I'm just going to do it in the next. No one's going to know it was me, because that seems a little easier. I'm sure if it was all of us, we'd all be like, okay, but if I do it in the dark, no one will know for sure it was me. And even when you're doing something right, I did something right several months ago. I still think that was right, but I definitely didn't do it directly. And I am of the distinct opinion that there's really nothing you can do covertly that is not going to be known. That's what the Bible says. You do it in secret, it's going to be known. Okay, so next few verses.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did anybody notice that Gideon didn't come from what you would call a godly home?
I mean, it was his father's altar, so.
His father's altar.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
father's altar to Baal with the Asherah
Yeah, I
beside
was
it.
like, what? When did that happen?
So you think about that when somebody says, God couldn't use me. They used Abraham, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Using Gideon, same thing. Well, look where I came from. Who cares?
It doesn't
God
matter.
uses
Yeah. He
what's
used
thrown
the
away.
rope.
Isn't
Yeah.
it beautiful? It's wonderful. I was sitting here reading along, I thought this is amazing.
Oh, that's so cool, because he said to go do it, and he didn't want to do it in the day. But, like, I mean, it's your dad's stuff.
Well,
So if anybody was going to be able to go do it in the middle of the day, it would have been him.
but if anybody was going to be able to beat him half to death too for doing it, it would
Yeah.
be his dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's why he did it at
I would
night.
have done it at night too. I'd
Well,
done it on the
Who
fourth
wouldn't
watch.
know who? Yeah.
But I just think that's neat. Like, even pointing out that it was his dad's altar. Because sometimes when God's asking you to do something, he wants it to just be well known that, like, you're taking a stand. And maybe they look, oh, his son's taking it down. Guess the family of whatever his name was, something with a J, has decided they're not into the altar thing anymore, you know? But, you know, right before his dad beat him up, who knows? But we'll see what his dad says next, because I just think, I don't know, maybe God was, like, preparing his dad's heart already for it. So, next few verses. Okay. And they said to one another, who has done this thing? And after they had searched and inquired, they said, Gideon, the son of Joash, has done this thing. All right, so didn't matter, he did it in the dark, apparently. People just looked out their window and were like, oh, look what he's doing, and then went back to bed. I don't know. Then the men of the town said to Joash, bring out your son that he may die, for he's broken down the altar of Baal and cut down the Asherah beside it. Asherah, whatever. But Joash said to all who stood against him, will you contend for Baal, or will you save him? Whoever contends for him shall be put to death by morning. If he is a god, let him contend for himself, because his altar has been broken down. Okay, so that's the dad. That was his pagan altar that was torn down. And they're like, all right, let's kill your son. And he's just like, actually, maybe God should defend himself. Okay, so I wrote a note for that one, is who fights for a god? God fights for himself, like our God fights for himself. There's supposed to be a comma and some other word there, but it got dropped. Anyway, so I always used to think that, like, we're supposed to, like, stand up for God and all this stuff. And I do think you're supposed to stand up for God. But the more you look at the Bible, the more you find these terrific stories like David and Goliath. And suddenly it doesn't really seem like, I mean, you're standing up for God, but it's more like you're taking a step in faith and then God stands up for himself.
Yes.
Because none of those times in the Bible that you see mankind defend God, like it kind of just seems like impossible, horrible odds. Like,
That description.
huh?
That was a really perfect description.
Thanks. We're here taking a step out in faith, and then God's like, all right, move out of the way now. Because they just said some things about my honor. I just need someone to like take that step, and then I'm defending myself. Where you just, I don't know, you talk to different people of different religions or cults, whatever you want to call them, and they spend a lot of time arguing for their God and defending their deity of choice and whatever. They're like, you just have to read it, you have to understand it, you have to know it, and you just don't understand, and blah, blah, blah. But the whole time, I just talked to someone the other day about this, they were like steady taking shots at me and my husband, creation as God made it. They were taking shots at God, they were taking shots at Jesus, but the whole time that their religion was more accepting and peace-loving of other religions, and that like just steady, like defending. I wasn't even arguing with them about what they believed, because I was just like, okay, believe whatever you want. But I don't know. I thought it was really neat, because that's why I said that maybe Joash's heart was being prepared, because instead of being like, you messed up my stuff, kid, like, yeah, go get him. He was just like, well, maybe our God should just defend himself. Let him burst into flames, then we can be like, okay, well, that's that. Because we all know that God does burst people into flames.
Yeah.
People just die and the ground opens up and there's all these great stories. So if Baal is actually God, maybe he should defend himself. Anyway. Let me read the rest of those verses. Therefore, now, all the Midianites and Amalekites and the people of the east came together, and they crossed the Jordan and encamped in the valley of Jezreel. But the Spirit of the Lord clothed Gideon, and he sounded the trumpet, and the Abiezrites were called out to follow him. I'm going to pronounce it every time a little different. And he sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, and they too were called out to follow him. And he sent messengers to Asher and Zebulun and Naphtali, and they went up to meet them. Then Gideon said to God, if you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said, behold, I am laying a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece alone, and it is dry all on the ground, then I shall know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said. Okay, so God's already said, you're my dude, you're going to do this. Just take your steps of faith. You kind of did it, kind of didn't, but I'm not going to comment on that. You did it at night, whatever. It's fine. I'd already worked on your dad, so you didn't get put to death. Now we're just putting out our testers to make sure that God's actually meaning it. Yes. I didn't face this way, so you couldn't ask a question. Okay.
Is that doubt by asking God to prove himself? To put the dew on, that he's going to, whatever the rest of the verse said. Sorry, it's gone.
To put dew on the fleece?
Mhm.
Is it doubt that he asked him?
Is that doubt that he asked him to do that to prove himself, that he would do what he said?
To me, yes. But I think God is super duper gentle
Okay.
about that sort of thing. That's the whole theme. Like, God is just so gentle with it. Now, to me it's doubt, but that's because if it was me, that's why I did it. The only reason I'm asking, I asked for a sign. I really felt like I was supposed to leave a job that I was just at, and I asked for a sign to leave the job. And then as it was getting closer to me getting that sign, I asked for a slightly more specific sign, and then an even more specific sign. Because I started thinking, maybe God won't actually answer it clearly enough for me to understand. Yeah, exactly. I gotta make it way simpler.
Didn't he already promise that thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's asking for proof on something he already promised. You are asking for a sign for something on a decision. That's not doubt. That's different. I mean, so what am I?
It'd be more like reassurance. Like, please reassure me that you're gonna do this.
Thank you.
There you
That's a
go.
better word. I would prefer reassurance. Yes.
Question?
That's what I feel guilty. If I'm yes.
If I would
Why do
say
you
the
need reassurance? Because you're what?
lack of faith.
Doubt.
Yeah.
Doubting.
So that's what I'm saying is.
But the lack of, but that right there, yes, their faith at that point in time was not there, right? So that extra sign or whatever, I've been in that situation as well, right? I'm sure we all have. That little extra sign right there is enough to strengthen that faith when you don't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because if you first go ahead.
In some stories in the Bible, it's not okay that it's asked for that, but in some it is, and so I get confused. Does that make sense?
Maybe it's from the
And-
heart. Yeah,
It was Jason.
the heart.
All right, I'll let Jason say something.
Good.
Okay.
This is my little bit right here.
Yeah. Okay. Here you go.
Okay, so always a heart condition.
Okay.
For me, when it's like, why some but not others? Always go back to David and Saul. David, his sin was more egregious in our eyes than Saul was. However, Saul's was more egregious in the eyes of God, because Saul was making himself God, where David was just screwing up. And so David was still after God's heart. Gideon, by all accounts in today's vernacular, he just got saved.
Mhm.
I mean, he grew up in a pagan household. He don't know any better.
Right.
And then thirdly, they didn't have the Holy Spirit to guide them, and you know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
Whereas,
okay.
so like back then, I think there was a little bit more gray area than what we have today. But yeah, I mean, this is why I wanted Gene to do. Well, I didn't really want. I wanted to do this one because I was going to nail Gideon, and God said, "Go tell Gene she's doing it." I'm like, no. But yeah, I mean, I've done that too. God, I did it just a couple weeks ago. God, give me a sign, knowing good well what He's telling me to do.
Mhm.
And I said, give me another sign, God. Apparently that one wasn't good enough. And I would call it doubt. I
Mhm.
would. Does that mean I'm going to hell? I don't think so on that one. 'Cause I'm not doubting Him and His sovereignty. I'm just not listening. I got a listening problem. And it's like, I don't necessarily, I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? Can you
Mhm.
just make it clear one more time? So I can make sure I'm not listening to the devil. Maybe that's what it is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Maybe it's not doubt, it's just reassurance.
Which means the same
I
thing.
tell me
Yeah,
to shut up.
You can shut up.
Okay, thank you.
And
Put
one
that
sounds
next to
better
me,
than
shut
the
up.
other.
Yeah.
But you understand what I'm asking. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to argue. I'm just trying to understand.
That's what we talk about. I like
Yeah.
So, like with your kids, you have some kids, right, ma'am?
One,
Stranger?
sometimes three.
Okay. So you have some kids.
Sometimes three.
One of them can say something and then ask you again, and you know they understood it perfectly in that moment.
Exactly.
And then the other one is asking you again, and you're like, you just answer it. And it's not because like you loved one more than the other in that moment. It was just that like you knew what their understanding level was. And I like that he was raised in a pagan household comment because
Yes, that helped
Yeah.
me understand.
he's worshiping demons. I mean, I'm sure he's heard little voices talk to him before.
So he wasn't
Yes.
sure if it was the right voice to
That-
listen to.
that-
Yeah.
That
Let
helped.
me just say, that was amazing analogy about the kids. Wow.
Yes.
I mean, like, my brain just went.
Yeah, because one kid,
I understand.
because they both may test me,
Mm-hmm.
but I know for certain one understood exactly what I
One's
said.
testing you.
But one
This one is.
may not have been clear
Mm-hmm.
on exactly what I said the first time, and I will have to say it again.
Mhm.
Yes, I get that.
This
Perfect.
is good stuff.
Okay,
And
yeah.
God is so gentle because he was like,
Thank
Love
you.
Misty Nights.
On all of it. Yeah. The combination of the discussion, yes.
good. Because he's so
I'm sorry
gentle.
I threw you off.
No, you're good. I wrote he was so gentle with our doubts and ignorance. Like I would call this ignorant.
Hallelujah.
Thank you. Not stupid, ignorant. Thank you.
Because he really was. He's just ignorant of what God is trying to tell him to do. And like,
Right.
this is your position. There's other people, you know, like Saul in the Bible. That is just like, ah, yes, I'm man, faith and power. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And then off doing whatever. This guy's like, I really don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I know what you said, but there's lots of little voices going on. So could you just say it one more time? When I read it, I just think it's really funny because it says do, though. And I just think, man, if this was Brandon, he'd be like, Mountain Dew, Lord, Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew on this one. Yeah.
I can't help I really cry. But what you just said, it made me think about how easy it is to be fooled by the devil, because so God's speaking to you in one voice.
Mm-hmm.
The devil speaks in many voices.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's break it down into Christianese. When you get into Revelation, what is Jesus' voice? His voice was like the sound of many waters.
Mm-hmm.
And so people, you hear the many, many voices, must be God.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, why would it be so overwhelming? Forgetting that God is the still small voice.
Mm-hmm.
That whisper in the dark, you know, hey, come on now. But we listen to the many. All right, I'll be quiet. At least for 2 minutes.
Okay.
All right,
2 minutes. We're gonna time it.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Did I read to the end of that chapter? Okay.
She don't know. We got so sidetracked.
That's okay. There's not very many notes for 7, so we'll be able to go. Okay.
Which verse are we on?
Sorry, Paige.
Saw it over here.
Okay.
Are we okay already?
He had asked for the Mountain Dew on the fleece, and now, okay, next thing. All right, and it was so. When he rose early the next morning, he squeezed the fleece, and he wrung enough dew from the fleece to fill a bowl with water. So it's not Mountain Dew, everybody. Okay. He just filled the bowl with water. Then Gideon said to God, "Let not your anger burn against me. Please, please, please don't be mad. I just have to ask one more time. Let me speak just once more. Please let me test just once more with the fleece.
Wow.
Please, because, okay, what do you think?
He knew it was down.
What? He knew. Just think about it. Okay, like, he did the thing, the water goes in. What do you think happened between the water filling that bowl and this verse? I don't know, maybe he drank the water. Who knows what happened to that water? But as the water disappeared, we'll go with it, the faith kind of faded.
Yeah.
Because there are other things talking to you.
Oh, okay.
So, especially if you spent your life worshiping pagan gods and vaguely hearing stories about this God, you don't understand his voice. The Bible says, like, my sheep know my voice. Okay, well, how would we know him except through, spending time with him? This guy hasn't learned his voice yet. So, the water is full. God is real. This is what I'm supposed to do. The water is gone. The faith is gone. God, please let me do this one more time. Because, I don't know, sometimes, like, it happens to all of us. Like, it happens to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just there and you're sure you know what God said. And in that moment of, like, total conviction, you are like, faith and power, here I am. And then the next day you wake up and you have to go talk to that person. Or you have to go do that thing, or you have to quit that job, or apply for that job, or confront somebody. The Bible talks about we're to exhort and encourage and rebuke. Okay, well, two of those sounded way easier than the third. Okay, now it's time to rebuke someone. Well, some of us don't mind as much as others, but I don't think anyone's super comfortable being like, so, this is really awkward today, but your skirt is way too short. That's horrible. Nobody wants to do that. So, in the moment, you're like, God convicted me of it. I'm going to do this. And then that water went down and the faith went with me. And suddenly it's like, okay, just tell me one more time because I need a pat on the back or a shove, a little Spartan kick in the direction that I need to be at. Okay. We can keep reading. All right. Let not your anger burn against me. Let me speak just once more, please. Let me test just once more with the fleece. Please, all these pleases, he's so sweet. Let it be dry on the fleece only, and all the ground let there be dew. So it's not Brandon because the Mountain Dew's on the dirt now. Okay. And God did so that night. And it was dry on the fleece only, and on all the ground there was dew.
Wow.
Okay. And I just think it's neat. I just wrote he's so gentle with our doubts and ignorance because nowhere in there did God go, and then all of heaven sighed. And then God was like, okay, just this one more time. He was just like, cool, whatever it takes to get you there, I guess, like, because he knew that he just didn't have it. Okay, so chapter 7. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
You gotta read it first, guys. Okay. Do we have chapter 7 yet? Yay. Okay. More names that I didn't practice pronouncing. Then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and encamped beside the spring of Harod, and the camp of Midian was north of them, by the hill of Moreh in the valley. The Lord said to Gideon, the people with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hand, lest Israel boast over me, saying, my own hand has served me, because God defends himself. So I don't really need all these people. This is way too many people. It's starting to look like it's a little bit of a fair fight. So if you ever wonder, is God like intentionally making this a very unfair fight for you? Like maybe. It's a high probability, okay? Now therefore proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, whoever is fearful and trembling, let him return home and hurry away from Mount Gilead. Then 22,000 of the people returned and 10,000 remained. Okay, so I wrote for that. If you're scared, go home. Is there a reason you should go home if you're scared? Yes? Why, Piper?
Because you being scared can cause the other people to be scared, and then they don't want to do it, and then nobody wants to do it, and nobody's going to listen.
Look at me.
You look like you're about to say something. Okay, bit's in his mouth. Never mind. Yeah. Because it's time to go home. Because Jesus did that. He's got to pray for this dead girl. People are in the room. Get out. Time to go home. You're scared, or I think they were laughing. I don't remember what all was happening. But, like, you don't need to be here.
Yeah, he didn't want to interfere with, have non-believers in there with the believers, because then it would doubt him, and I'm not sure what would have happened, but.
Maybe nothing. Because what's stopping the power of God anywhere in the Bible?
Doubt. That's true,
Doubt.
that's true, that's true.
Okay, so who here has ever been prayed for? Everyone doesn't raise their hand. All right, we've all been prayed for, right?
Yeah.
So who here wanted to be prayed for? All right. If I told you I don't really believe in God or that he can do anything, who here wants me in the room praying for you? Yeah, that's what I thought. You guys are all like... Bobby's like, let's pray for her.
Put you in the room, he'll put you in a chair too.
You sit down right next to me, sweetie. There you go. There's a few nice ministry people over here would like me to stay. Everyone else is like, get out. I'm trying to get healed here. Okay. Okay, so you don't always have to go home when you're scared. But in this occasion, God's like, if you're scared, go home. There's too many of you here anyway. I was at a conference once, and we were going to pray over somebody, and they needed a healing. And there was quite a few people. I think there was like almost 1,000 people there, and they wanted everyone to get out of their chairs and come like put your hand on somebody to put their hand on somebody to eventually touch this person. Okay, yeah. No. Don't recommend. But anyway, and the person who was leading it stood up and was like, hey, before anybody starts praying or laying hands, anything, if you don't have faith that this is going to happen, you don't believe in healings. And he like listed a number of things that you just, some of them were weird things that now I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, I see it. But other things were just, if you don't believe in this, if you're not a Christian, if you're just doing it because your friend's doing it, if you're just doing it because your other friend's doing it and neither one of you believe, but you don't want to like chicken out because you're both standing here, go outside. There's time outside. Everyone go out. And it was really interesting because at first like nobody went. And all of a sudden he's like, get out. And a lot of people did leave.
You thought I was bad.
It's like it was, well, once one started leaving, it was a little easier. So I like to picture 22,000 people. I mean, there might have been that one guy who was scared senseless. And he's like, thank God, he took off. But other than that, I think everybody else is kind of like, sorry, dude, like put my plow chair down. I'm just going to have fun. But anyway, so he said, you're scared, go home. All right, keep reading. I talked for so long, and Paige won't know where we're at anyway. Okay. And the Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Take them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. Okay, he's not saying it's your job to test anybody. You're going to go out there and make them lift rocks. No, he's like, I'm going to test them for you. because I understand, like, you haven't practiced my voice and all of that stuff. We just did the Mountain Dew test. Okay, I get it. I will test them for you. And if any of whom I say to you, this one shall go with you, shall go with you. And any one of whom I say to you, this one shall not go with you, shall not go. So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, everyone who laps the water with his tongue, as a dog laps, you shall set by himself. Likewise, everyone who kneels down to drink. And the number of those who lapped, putting their hands to their mouths, was 300 men. But all the rest knelt down to drink water. And the Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men who lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hand, and let all the others go, every man to his home. Okay. So, God does not really care about our logic, okay?
No.
That's not...
God took the rejects.
Yeah.
Really.
Okay.
You gotta think about it. Like, you're like got your tongue in the river. And he's like, those are the ones.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
They were like scooping it up and like lapping it like with the tongue like their dogs, or were they like
What
drinking?
the Bible says.
That's what I was trying to figure
Were they
out.
like,
I'm like, what?
scooping it
I
up?
mean, were they like
What did it say?
scooping it, or were they
I
literally
don't
like?
know which part. Were they
What?
like scooping it up or like face first?
Both.
I
That's-
remember.
that's what I was
Some were
wondering.
I
laughing
remember
and some
learning
were
this when I was
prim
little,
and
and like
proper.
we had like a whole demonstration of like all the kids in the class were like doing how they were doing it, and the people who got to stay drank it like that. So I'm just trying to think of, like, how did they say?
I'm thinking the ones that were kneeling must have been scooping.
Yeah.
The ones that he
That were-
kept
Do you wanna pull the
were, like,
verse back up?
literally on face first,
Yeah.
with their faces in
Yeah,
the
they
water.
were lapping it with their tongue.
Wow.
Everyone who laps the water with his
And,
tongue.
and
dog
they,
laps.
I like Jason's. He took the lowly.
Lap, putting their hands to their mouths. So they scooped it up and they lapped.
Yeah.
It was 300 men.
Okay.
And the rest knelt down to drink the water. So maybe the other ones put their
Face in the water?
this water. I don't know. But
They were doing like a dog.
God takes the weirdos. I'm just telling you, God will be like, I got you.
I didn't really mind as much the who is licking what part of the socially awkwardness of it, as I thought the ones who are as a dog, like just generally speaking in anything biblical,
In general.
if they say dog, it's not usually a compliment.
Yeah.
So it's like whatever the dog part is, I assume to be the slightly more unusual way. And the fact that way less of them did it that way, I don't know. You're the different ones. Slight weirdos. If you ever look around and go, man, I'm a weirdo, like, it's okay. Good company. Okay? God will use you. That's okay. All right. And then I'll keep reading. All right, so the people took provisions in their hands and their trumpets, and they sent all the rest of Israel, every man to his tent, but remained the 300 men. And the camp of Midian was below him in the valley. That same night the Lord said to him, Arise, go down against the camp, for I have given it into your hand. But if you are afraid to go down to the camp with Purah, your servant. You shall hear what they say, and afterward your hands shall be strengthened to go down against the camp. Then he went down with Purah his servant to the outposts of the armed men who were in the camp. And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the people of the east lay along the valley like locusts in the valley, and their camels were without number as the sand that is on the seashore in abundance. Okay, that's a lot of camels. All right. When Gideon came, behold, there was a man telling a dream to his comrade. And he said, Behold, I dreamed a dream, and behold, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian, and came to the tent, and it struck it, so that it fell, and it turned upside down, so that the tent lay flat. And his comrade answered, This is no other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. All right. This is like the sword of Gideon. This guy is so well known now. The son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has given into his hand Midian and all the camp. Some comrade, man. Like, I had a nightmare about some loaf of bread coming into camp, and you're telling me we're all doomed. Like, okay. All right, next one. As soon as Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, God gave the dream, he gave the interpretation. He worshipped Then he returned to the camp of Israel and said, "Arise, for the Lord has given the host of Midian into your hand." And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies, and put trumpets into the hands of all of them, and empty jars with torches inside the jars. And he said to them, "Look at me, and do likewise. When I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then blow the trumpets. Also on every side of the camp, and shout for the Lord and for Gideon." So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outskirts of the camp, and at the beginning of the middle watch, when he had just set the watch, and they blew the trumpets and smashed the jars that were in their hands. Then the 3 companies blew the trumpets and broke the jars. They held in their left hands the torches, and their right hand the trumpets to blow, and they cried out, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." Every man stood in his place around the camp, and all the army ran. They cried out and fled. When they blew the 300 trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his comrade and against all the army. And the army fled as far as Bethshittah towards Zerah, as far as the border of, word I'm not going to try to pronounce, to Bath. And the men of Israel were called out from Naphtali and from Asher and from all of Manasseh, and they pursued after Midian. Okay. Where am I going here? All right. I'll stop reading there so that we can get down to chapter 8. All right. So in verse 14 is where he's like, hey, you're going to hear something and it's going to strengthen you. And then God sends you. And go ahead. You're scared? Take your servant with you. And so him and his servant go, and they're just like looking out and can't see anything. Because all these camels, I'm just telling you, camels stink. So, like, there's sands. That's a lot of camels. Anyway. Well, really, like, think about it. There's all these camels doing camel things in a field. I think sometimes we, like, look at stories in the Bible, and we're like, oh, yeah, this dude laid on his stomach for 40 days. And it's like, have you ever laid on your stomach? Yeah, these things are way more extreme than we think of. This is another example of God being kind. He's going to strengthen the weak. God will go unreasonably out of his way to help someone who wants help.
Yes.
Okay, like Gideon wasn't trying to be disobedient. He wasn't trying to be doubtful. He wants to be strengthened. He wanted help. And God's like, here, I'm going to take you here. I'm going to give random heathen dude number 1 a dream and give random heathen dude number 2 an interpretation. And you're going to hear both of them miraculously with your servant that you snuck into this camp full of these armed people who are way better equipped than you. And I made sure they're way better equipped because I got rid of all your equipment. Because he wanted to help someone who wanted help. And then I just put down, what do you want? Because if you don't want help, you're not going to get it. If you feel like you've done everything you can do and there's no more to be tried, I don't know that there's anything God can do for you. Because you've kind of already said that you've done everything you can do and God can't do anything. Yeah.
So the moral of the story is God likes to help random dudes.
Random dudes.
Random dudes.
He likes to help specific dudes too. And dudettes. Okay. So if you didn't read chapter 8, this is real unfortunate because I'm not reading all of it. Okay. In verse 1 through 3, just so in case anybody wondered, they won that battle. Now you know. All right. Chapter 8. Okay. Then the men of Ephraim said to him, this Gideon, "What is this that you have done to us, not to call us when you went to fight against Midian?" And they accused him fiercely. And he said to them, "What have I done now in comparison with you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the grape harvest of Abiezer? God has given into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb. What have I been able to do in comparison with you?" Then their anger against him subsided when he said this. Okay, so he didn't invite everybody to come fight. Right. Not everybody was invited in this particular thing. What Wasn't for any particular reason that I can remember, except for that it wouldn't have really mattered because God sent pretty much everyone else home anyway. So maybe God was just going ahead and saving some time. They don't need to come. Read it and find out for yourself if you wonder more. But I really liked those verses because people are always going to want what they don't have. And so even though they've already won all these things and like all the grapes and all this great stuff, and he like turns away their answer with some nice complimentary things like, oh, look what you've done. I've done nothing compared to you. They're still sitting there like kind of low-key grumbling because, well, we didn't get to participate in this.
But they were really relieved to be sent home anyway because they really didn't want to fight.
Well, yeah, like
Probably.
God sent home pretty much almost everybody. It's almost guaranteed you would have all been sent home anyway. Anyway. So there's that. The next verse that I really, really liked, so I highlighted it, is verse 23. And I think if you go to the verse right before it.
I said this.
Okay. Then the men of Israel said to Gideon, rule over us, you and your son and your grandson also, for you have saved us from the hand of Midian. Gideon said to them, I will not rule over you, and my son will not rule over you. The Lord will rule over you. And I just wrote a note there. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Okay. He wasn't like looking to be in charge of all these people. He wasn't trying to be a king or anything powerful and great and amazing. He's like, I'm just trying to do what God told me to do. Okay? That's all. No more, no less. God at no point in here said, and now you shall be the ruler over all these people. Now you shall be the king. God's supposed to still be a king at this point. We have these judges and prophets because nobody's listening, but God's still supposed to be king. And I just think it's neat that Gideon was like, nope, not me, not my son, nobody. We're leaving now. All right, so verse 24 and 27, 24 through 27. I wrote, we are always making idols, aren't we? Okay, so Gideon won a bunch of battles. It's a lot of great stuff. Read the chapters. Okay.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
Okay. Go back one more. Dude, this screen's...
Because they were Ishmaelites. Where did they come from? Abraham and Hagar. That's the battle that still goes on today.
Wait, Kim,
Ishmaelites, they come from Ishmael. That's the Abraham's son outside of marriage with the servant girl.
Hagar, yeah.
Oh,
Remember, because Isaac was the one that the promise was to.
right.
So they were to go and they had to go and destroy them,
But
the
they
Ishmaelites, and they didn't.
didn't.
But they're working on it. They're working on it.
Still working on it?
But yeah, still. The Ishmaelites were in the promised land. The land that was promised to the Jews, to the Israelites, from Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
The Ishmaelites were already there. The devil said, "No, I'm taking that. Thanks." Anyway, okay. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Okay, so he didn't want to be king. Skip. And then he says, and Gideon said to them, let me make a request of you. Every one of you give me the earrings from his spoil, for they had golden earrings because they were Ishmaelites. And they answered, we will willingly give them. I didn't know the screen was turned this way. I've been facing this way this whole time. Okay. And they spread a cloak, and every man threw in it the earrings of his spoil. Somewhere I had it written down, but it's gone. Some dude, Mr. Kaufman, says that was around 50 pounds of gold. Anyway, and the weight of the golden earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold, beside the crescent ornaments and the pendants and the purple garments worn by the kings of Midian, and besides the collars that were around the necks of their camels.
Wow.
Okay, can I throw in one more time?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So if you look ancient Egypt, you look Freemasons, any demonic worship, they have the crescent. It's usually here. Islam has the crescent. And when it's demonic, you'll see the crescent. And they had the crescent back then, the pagans. It's kind of interesting, you know.
Why?
Same demons.
Yeah, same demons. It's moon worship and things like that.
It's their logo.
Yeah.
Well, their camels had jewelry.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. These camels that go more than the sands of the sea all got gold necklaces.
Well, you got all that much gold, it's got to be tiring. A camel would carry it for you. Put them on the
Here you go.
Yeah.
They didn't
Pretty-
have jewelry boxes, man. You had to
Yeah.
put on the camel.
Okay.
Swap it out every once in a while.
All right.
What?
I don't. That that may be extra biblical what I just said, or
Oh.
that was like hyperbole.
I like to think they just wanted the camels to be pretty, okay? So the twinkling field of camels and camel poop, okay? All right, next verse. That's why I was facing this way, so I could, like, contact Paige. I don't know, like 24, 25, 20,000? Okay. And Gideon made an ephod of it and put it in his city, Ophrah. And all of Israel whored after it, and it became a snare to Gideon and to his family. All right. So that's where I put, we're always making idols, aren't we? I looked at it because I couldn't remember what an ephod was. Does anybody remember what that is?
Measurement of sign, I don't remember how much, though.
Okay.
Or what, exactly.
1,700 shekels.
Yeah, it's like a garment.
Was it the?
It's like a priestly garment robe thing. It's part of it, and it has like gold. Okay. So, Mr. Kaufman has comments. I'll be reading those. But we'll go to the next verses. All right. So 27 through 33. Don't be raising your hand.
That was
Okay.
$465. The 1,700 shekels.
Okay.
Yeah, in our money now.
Now.
That's what it was worth.
Okay. So Midian was subdued before the people of Israel, and they raised their heads no more. And the land had rest 40 years in the days of Gideon. Jerubbaal, whatever, son of Joash, went and lived in his own house. By the way, that was like the name they gave him for contending with Baal. So they switch and call him that in Gideon a bunch. But anyway. Now Gideon, he like had dual personalities, okay? Had 70 sons, his own offspring, for he had many wives. And his concubine, who was in Shechem, also bore him a son, and he called his name Abimelech. I can say that one. Okay. And Gideon, the son of Joash, died in a good old age and was buried in the tomb of Joash, his father, at Ophrah of the Abiezrites. As soon as Gideon died, okay? The people of Israel turned again and whored after the Baals and made Baal-berith their god.
Wow. Instantaneous.
And the people of Israel did not remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them from the hand of all their enemies on every side. Okay, this is a very sad part to me because it's just like God was being so sweet and so gentle with everybody up to this point, and then they're just like, and we're done with that now. And they did not show steadfast love to the family of Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, in return for all the good that he had done to Israel. Then the men of Ephraim said to him, "What is this that you have done to us, not to call us when you went to fight against Midian?" No. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I see what's happening here. I've been confused. Okay. All right. So one thing they were super good at was forgetting. It either said, and then they churned, or and then they were disobedient, or and then they whored after, or then they forgot the way. It doesn't matter. What are we good at? Like, because sometimes we read our Bible and we think we're like, man, I'm really good at this. And then we forget by the time it's lunch and we're mad at everybody. I think we're all good at different. I'm not talking to you. Hi, Piper.
The ambivalent, that name sounds very familiar.
Abimelech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he like was he a good guy or a bad guy? Like, it sounds like we've talked about him before from another. What was it the same Abimelech?
Come next week, find out. I don't know.
Oh, I feel like we talked about him like before, but I don't remember if it was in a good way or a bad way.
Seemed like, I think there was I want to say Abimelech the high priest, but I think I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
that's what we were talking about.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the
Yeah,
same
we
one?
talked about it a while back. It's been a good while, but
Oh,
not too long.
got me.
Oh,
I
don't
remember bits and pieces. I don't remember all of
I
it.
think that was Melchizedek or something.
Yeah,
That was a
Mhm.
different name.
yeah, when we was going through that.
But I feel like we talked about him.
You should Google it.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know.
Yeah. Stick around, find out. I don't know. Listen, I'm here. I don't have all your answers. You come looking at me for all your answers, you're going to end up like these people. As soon as I die, Piper went back to worship and find new gods. Well, you got to wonder, like, after a while, we are good at making idols. Because you think these people are following God. If Jason kicks it tomorrow, Lord forbid. Like, and everybody in here has a new deity, demon worship thing they got going as soon as he's that cold.
Following the eclipse.
Like, really, at that point, what were you following? What were you believing? What were you good at? Because obviously, it was just following whoever the leader was. It wasn't following God. Jason's in heaven, like, man, it sucks to be them. I never knew. All right, I'm going to read Mr. Kaufman's comments. It is believed that Gideon's sin in making such an ephod might have been due, as Cale suggested, in part to the fact that the high priesthood had probably lost its worth in the eyes of the people on account of the worthlessness of its representatives. Another contributing factor to the sin of Gideon might have been the latent hostility between him and the tribe of Ephraim mentioned in the first paragraph of this chapter. The tabernacle with its high priest, etc., was located in Ephraim's territory, and Gideon might have felt the desire to have a closer access to God than that of going through the tabernacle at Shiloh. Nevertheless, what he did was sinful. He usurped the prerogatives of the Aaronic priesthood, drawing away the people of Israel from their one and only true sanctuary, thereby not only undermining the theoretic unity of God's people, but also giving a strong impetus to the relapse of the nation of Israel into the worship of Baal. Following his death, this sin destroyed the house of Gideon. Regarding the question of just what the ephod made by Gideon looked like, nothing is certainly known. We know nothing of its shape, size, or use, although it may well have been a priestly garment. A number of scholars suppose that this ephod was some kind of image. More called it an idol. But that was merely his deduction based off the fact that Israel worshipped it. This making of an ephod marks the tragic end of a truly great man. With regard to the widespread opinion that some kind of image was involved in this event, Yates wrote that it is possible that Gideon constructed an idol, an image, wearing his ephod, which closely resembled the true ephod at Shiloh. So those are details on that. When I looked at what an ephod was, it just didn't seem like it would make sense for it to weigh as much as they were saying it weighed. So I too also think he made an idol because they were like whoring after it. So why would they care?
That would be why they whored after their gods when he died.
Mm-hmm.
His sin. It's amazing how somebody will be so used by God.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, Paige talk about this all the time. Pastors, ministers, is you have to watch them as they get older. All of a sudden, it's like
They go sideways.
yeah, they go sideways. They get into self. They get into money. They get into excusing sin, and it's like, what do you do? Wait, what happened? And it's I don't know, but his sin will cause the nation to whore after other gods, because he still. Y'all ever know people that they have it all right here? It's all everything is right that comes out, but their life doesn't live it. But for some reason, you don't act a fool around them because they speak it correctly. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they're gone, it's like those, not us, but other people are like, and then they let it fly again. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of, yeah. There we go. That's all I got. I ain't got
Yes,
people in
Piper.
So did any of the Israelites like worship God, or did like they all go worship false gods? And what happened to all like the laws and like the priest stuff? Because it mentioned about like how the priest stuff like could have lost its worth or something. Like what happened to all of that? Did they just not do it anymore?
I'm sure there had to be. I'm sure there was a remnant. I think it may have been a majority that fell away, but typically, even in today's culture, there will be a remnant, and it speaks of that in the Bible of the remnant.
Was Elijah?
Mm-hmm.
Remember Elijah? Oh, it's only me. All right, you're done. There was like 4,000 others. Yeah, there's all, but they don't, the remnant that never stands up hardly. They just kind of play behind the scenes and do what God tells them to do, you know?
And since like only Aaron and his family could be like the priest, was there only one like priest place that they had that they could go to, or were there like?
Like a hangout?
I mean, like no, like the like the temple thing that they had, like the tabernacle that they had to like sacrifice things at. Was it just one? Was it just one that everybody had to go to, or was it multiple?
It was supposed to be just one. I mean, there was only one ark. There was only supposed to be one spot.
And it was in the Ephraim place?
Or so in the notes say. You gotta go read your own Bible, okay? I just liked that whole commentary, but specifically I liked basically the concept that he was this great leader and it was a tragic end to this great leader. Kind of like Jason said, this little bit of off thing, I don't think there's anything super more dangerous to someone who's trying to follow God than following somebody who's like 99% following God. Really good example of that, since Jason likes to talk about him a lot, is Andy Stanley. I used to listen to some Andy Stanley stuff here and there because a ministry I was at played a lot of his sermons, and I always thought, okay, he's like good common sense sermons and stuff. And I really didn't get into him, and I probably would have said up until like maybe 2 years ago, but oh yeah, I like Andy Stanley stuff. I really hadn't listened to any of his newer stuff, like to the point where we played something of his in here to talk about it, and he has like gray hair, and I was like, whoa, he's so old. Because apparently I'd been looking at stuff from when he was in his 20s. And I watched this, it was like a piece about him, and about how he like is endorsing like homosexuality in the church and stuff like that. And this person was like, you wouldn't actually be particularly shocked to think that he thinks that if you looked at what his father taught closely. Because what his father taught in general, everyone's like, you know, this guy's a man of God. He teaches this nice, like, by the Bible, by the book stuff. But you start looking at it, and it's very, like, watered down, and there's just these exceptions that he was always making. And Andy Stanley's just saying them out loud. Like, so Andy Stanley is like the sons of Gideon. And this guy's like, okay, I'm going to build another place to worship God. Okay, so it kind of sounds like you're just trying to like take a little glory over to where you're at. You can walk over to Midian, it'll be okay. Or Ephraim or wherever it was. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Anybody else have anything? Yay. Okay. I'm supposed to smile, apparently, and pray. Okay, that's what Anthony told me to do. All right, we're praying. God, thank you so much for everything that you've taught us, and for all the questions that were asked. Just help each one of us to go home and read our Bibles and learn more about you. And, yeah, all the people online who may or may not see this, God, just help them to each individually spend more time with you and learning more about you and getting these questions answered by you, because you're so gentle and you're happy to show us. In Jesus' name, amen.